Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israeli Gaza proposal allows return of all hostages, elimination of Hamas. Time for this war to end, Joe Biden pushes for Israel-Gaza truce. OpenAI claims Israeli firm has tried to disrupt the Lok Sabha polls, pushed anti-BJP and pro-Congress content. India's IT minister calls it a very dangerous threat to Indian democracy. The seventh and last phase of India's general elections is underway across 57 seats, including Prime Minister Modi's seat of Varanasi. Voting percentage 49.68% at 3 p.m. And 14-time winner Real Madrid will take on Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League final. US President Joe Biden has unveiled a three-phase Israeli proposal to end the conflict in Gaza. Speaking at the White House on Friday, Biden said that the proposal would comprise three phases, which include a full and complete ceasefire, the withdrawal of IDF forces, this is from the populated areas, and the exchange of hostages for Palestinian prisoners. The US President called on Hamas terrorists.
A comprehensive new proposal. It's a roadmap to an enduring ceasefire and the release of all hostages. This proposal has been transmitted by Qatar to Hamas. This new proposal has three phases. The first phase would last for 6 weeks. Here's what it would include: a full and complete ceasefire, a withdrawal of Israeli forces from all populated areas of Gaza, release of a number of hostages, including women, the elderly, the wounded, in exchange for release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners.
Well, the US President also called on Hamas to agree to the Israeli proposal on the Gaza conflict, saying that this is the most effective way to end the ongoing conflict.
If Hamas fails to fulfill its commitments under the deal, Israel can resume military operations. But Egypt and Qatar have assured me, and they are continuing to work to ensure that Hamas doesn't do that. The United States will help ensure that Israel lives up to their obligations as well. It's time to begin this new stage. For the hostages to come home, for Israel to be secure, for the suffering to stop. It's time for this war to end, for the day after to begin.
Well, the new proposal outlined by Biden on Friday consists of three phases, as we said. The first phase would involve a 6-week ceasefire during which Israeli forces would withdraw from Gaza and hostages, including the elderly and women, would be exchanged for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Palestinian civilians would return to Gaza, including northern Gaza, and also 600 trucks would deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza daily. In the second phase, Hamas and Israel would negotiate the terms of a permanent end to the hostilities. The ceasefire will still continue as long as the negotiations continue. That's what the US President said. And the third phase would involve a major reconstruction plan for Gaza. Now, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken held separate phone calls on Friday with the foreign ministers from Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Jordan. The U.S. State Department has said that Blinken made these calls to discuss a proposal to achieve an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and secure the release of hostages. The top U.S. diplomat conducting the calls on the plane as he flew back to Washington from Prague underscored to his counterparts that the proposal is in the interests of both Israelis and Palestinians. The Indonesian President-elect Prabowo Subianto said on Saturday that his country will be willing to send peacekeeping troops to enforce a ceasefire in Gaza if required. Speaking at the Shangri-La Dialogue, which is Asia's premier security conference, the Indonesian president-elect said that the U.S. President Joe Biden's three-phase proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza was a step in the right direction. Prabowo also said a comprehensive investigation into the humanitarian disaster in the Rafah area of Gaza was needed.
I wish to address the recent tragic events in Rafah, in Gaza, which have resulted in numerous innocent casualties. These heartbreaking incidents compel us to urgently call for comprehensive investigation into this humanitarian disaster.
And Hamas has meanwhile released a statement reacting positively to these truce talks, the proposal in fact. Hamas said it was ready to deal positively and constructively with any proposal based on a permanent ceasefire, full withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, reconstruction and the return of displaced to all the places of their residence, and also the completion of a serious prisoner exchange deal. My colleague Shubhendu Ghosh has been following this story closely, and he joins me now in the newsroom for more on this. Shubhendu, given the fact that this is a proposal that has been offered by Israel, right, how seriously is Hamas taking it?
To begin with, Mark, I think it's a test of influence of President Biden of the United States, given that the proposal and its tenets have come from it. If you look at the tenets of the proposal, these are not new points. Peace deals have been negotiated for the past many months now. It's the 8th month of the conflict. But the contest has been about who blinks first, whether it is going to be Israel who's going to withdraw the forces, or it's the Hamas who's going to release the hostages, the about 100 hostages still in captivity as far as Gaza and Hamas are concerned. So that point remains. Hamas, the reaction that has just come in, you just informed, they've given a positive reaction. But is Israel willing to withdraw from the Gaza fighting? Prime Minister Netanyahu has made it very clear that there's going to be no negotiation till its targets are achieved, till Hamas is destroyed. So that really problematizes the situation. Yes. How do you negotiate and destroy the opponent at the same time?
Indeed. In fact, Netanyahu still speaks of the elimination of Hamas. So can there be a peace plan and the elimination of Hamas going together? That's the question. Also, whether Hamas is being recognized in the process by Israel. There seems to be, these are probably imponderables when one looks at it, because at the end of the day, Israel is trying to get rid of Hamas completely. Right. And at the same time, they are offering a peace proposal which allows them to say that they are part of a negotiation that could be workable. Absolutely.
And Mark, as we ponder whether Hamas is going to be recognized by Israel, we should also think about the developments that have happened in the recent weeks. Whether Palestine as a nation, as the idea of a nation, is being recognized by nations across the world. Today, 145 countries in the world, including India, recognize Palestine as a nation. They work for a two-state solution. Norway, Spain and Ireland are the nations that have, in the past week, recognized Palestine as a nation. So there is a worldview which is shaping up, which is taking side without directly intervening, which talks about a legitimate space for Palestine as well. And Prime Minister Netanyahu, although he has an upper hand in the conflict, cannot ignore these international voices which also act as pressure points. But yes, the point that you mentioned, can he eliminate Hamas and at the same time negotiate with that organization, remains a sticking point. This is the contradiction that has dominated the developments in the region so far.
And does Biden's comment about looking for the day after, he's already talked about this conflict coming to an end. Does that also make sense when we look at the IDF, wanting to continue with the military goal, with an objective to eliminate Hamas, and probably at the end of the day also, to safeguard their perceptions of a border?
Absolutely. We have to see that America and Israel may be the closest of allies, but yet there are very critical points where they differ. The end or the beginning of the end of this conflict is a case in point. America sees a situation where Hamas is going to return the hostages and Israel is going to back off from the battleground. But Israel does not see it like that. And I think that's a fundamental difference in the manner in which the two leaders, President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu, are viewing this conflict. But they will also have to again look at the international developments and the worldview as well. United Nations has been pushing for a ceasefire for the humanitarian crisis. We have more responses coming in. Indonesian President-elect, for example, is speaking about that this conflict should end, and they're willing to, in fact, be a part of that peace process. Secretary Blinken is reaching out to Saudi Arabia. So we see larger consultations that are coming in order to achieve peace in the region. So both the leaders, while they differ in that critical point of how will this peace process begin, will still have to address and respond to that international pressure.
Shubhendu Ghosh, thanks very much for being with us. Now, in a sign of support for Israel, leaders of the Democratic-led U.S. Senate and also the Republican-led House of Representatives on Friday invited the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to address a joint meeting of the Congress. The letter inviting Netanyahu was signed by the Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, the Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, the Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, and the House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries. And this letter, what does it do? It does not propose a date for this speech. So addresses to joint meetings of Congress by foreign leaders, they are a rare honor generally reserved for the closest of U.S. allies or major world figures. And Netanyahu has already given 3 such addresses, most recently one in 2015. And this speech would make Netanyahu, in fact, the first foreign leader to address joint meetings of the Congress 4 times. He is currently tied at 3 with Britain's wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has welcomed the development. In a post on social media site X, the UN chief said that the world has witnessed too much suffering and destruction in Gaza. He said now, and I'm quoting, "I welcome US President Biden's initiative and encourage all parties to seize this opportunity for a ceasefire, release of all hostages, guaranteed unhindered humanitarian access, and ultimately a durable peace in the Middle East." Our next story, the US-based AI firm OpenAI has said that they have disrupted actions of an Israeli commercial company trying to influence India's general elections. OpenAI said that it's committed to enforcing policies that prevent abuse and to improve transparency around AI-generated content. That is especially true with respect to detecting and disrupting covert influence operations which attempt to manipulate public opinion or influence political outcomes without revealing the true identity or intentions of the actors behind them. The firm said that in the last 3 months, it has disrupted 5 covert I/O that sought to use OpenAI models in support of deceptive activity across the internet. The AI firm said that a commercial company in Israel, and it's called Stoic, it generating content about the Gaza conflict, and to a lesser extent, the Histadrut trade unions organization in Israel and also the Indian elections. OpenAI nicknamed this operation Zero Zeno. And Zeno, as we recall, is the founder of the Stoic school of philosophy. And to reflect, in fact, the low levels of engagement that its various campaigns have attracted. Now, OpenAI has called Zero Zeno a for-hire Israeli threat. It's an actor posting anti-Hamas, anti-Qatar, pro-Israeli, anti-BJP and pro-Histadrut content across the internet. OpenAI's report titled AI and Covert Influence Operations, Latest Trends offers a sneak peek into how these actors in cyberspace are using artificial intelligence to manipulate the masses. So according to this report, this operation targeted audiences in Canada, also the United States and Israel, with content in English as well as in Hebrew. In early May, it began targeting audiences in India with English language content. It also appeared to have been preparing to run the I.O. campaign, targeting audiences in Ghana. In May, the AI firm disrupted some activity which focused on the Indian elections less than 24 hours after it had begun. The Indian Union Minister, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, has reacted to this revelation made by OpenAI. He's called it a very dangerous threat to Indian democracy. In a post on social media, Rajiv Chandrasekhar said, and I quote, "It's absolutely clear and obvious that BJP for India was and is the target of influence operations, misinformation and foreign interference being done by and or on behalf of some Indian political parties. This is a very dangerous threat to our democracy. It is clear vested interests in India and outside are clearly driving this and needs to be deeply scrutinized, investigated and exposed," unquote. Okay, still to come here on DD India News Hour. Japanese and Chinese defense ministers meet on the sidelines of the Shangri-La dialogue in Singapore. And at the UNSC, US allies condemn North Korea's failed satellite launch, nuclear bid, and China and Russia defend it. Also, as South Africa tallies votes, the vote share of the governing African National Congress continues to decline.
The marriage between tech and tradition is what farmers need across the globe. Tech shows us ways to deal with new challenges in a world, while traditional knowledge and varieties show us how to withstand these challenges.
Some people in society look negatively at a woman if she steps outside of her home.
Do you know 700 different crop problems on 30 different crops? Diagnostic, that's tough for a human to do.
Big food manufacturers are getting like the biggest share. Farmers and farm workers, which are like in the bottom of this value chain.
When a volcanic eruption injects ash, dust and gases into the atmosphere, into the stratosphere, they form sulfate aerosols, which the Earth's rotation helps spread around the globe.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. And now let's get you the latest from the world's largest election in India. Polling is underway for the seventh and the final phase of India's parliamentary elections. The voters across 57 constituencies, these are in 8 states and a union territory, they are eligible to exercise their franchise in today's polling. And voting is taking place. This is in all the seats of Punjab. There are 13 seats there, 4 of them in Himachal Pradesh, 13 constituencies of Uttar Pradesh, 9 in West Bengal, 8 in Bihar, and 6 in Odisha. And there are 3 seats in Jharkhand besides the union territory of Chandigarh. The voting had begun at 7 in the morning and is scheduled to conclude at 6 in the evening. And polling for the remaining 42 assembly constituencies of the Odisha State Assembly too are going to the polls simultaneously. Counting of votes for everything is going to take place on the 4th of June. And the total voter turnout for the 7th and the final phase of the general elections, and this is till 3 p.m. local time, was 49.68% across all the states. 42.95% in Bihar, over 46.83% in Uttar Pradesh, and Himachal Pradesh had reported over 50%, in fact 58.41%, West Bengal 58.46%, Jharkhand 60.14%, Odisha 49.77%, Punjab had reported 46.38%, and Chandigarh had also crossed 50%, 52.61% reported till 3 p.m. And we are joined by our correspondents on the field. Deepika Mehto is joining us from Varanasi. Dibyendu Mondal is in Jadavpur, and Akshay Dongre is joining us from Kullu. Thanks very much for being with us. Deepika, what's the voting percentage like in Varanasi? And I mean, since it's a key constituency, Prime Minister's constituency, what's on the voters' minds?
Good evening, Mark. If you talk about the voting percentage as of 3 p.m. IST, Indian Standard Time, it has already touched 48%. So we are expecting the 5 p.m. polling percentage to somewhere cross the 50% mark, which would be a very fair voter turnout, even in this scorching heat, because the sun is getting really hot. It is really humid indeed here, but still, since morning 6:30 a.m., we've seen a very good voter turnout. We showed our viewers the first visuals from Varanasi and how the voters were coming very excited. They were very excited to come out and vote. We saw many senior citizens, many first-time voters who also shared their experiences, and they have many issues in their mind, be it inflation, be it job opportunity, or be it praising the government on the grounds of development that they have witnessed overall in Kashi in the past 10 years. Keeping all these factors in mind, the voter turnout has been fair till now, which is 48% as of 3 p.m. and we are expecting it to cross beyond 50% by 5:30 p.m. The final figure would come after 6:30 or 7 o'clock. But till now, it looks like a very decent figure, because also considering the fact that this is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's constituency, and he's once again appealed all the voters. He posted a tweet at 7 o'clock today to appealing all the voters to go out in large numbers and create yet another record. So it remains to be seen whether that record will be created or not. But so far, considering the heat, the summerish situation here in Varanasi, the voter turnout has been really good, Mark.
Indeed. Let's go across to Dibyendu, who's in Jadavpur. Dibyendu, the West Bengal polling has always been high, and in fact, it's crossed 58% by 3 o'clock, and still quite a few hours left to go. So, I mean, are we likely to see the trend continuing, 78+% voting turnout? And also, if you put into context the kind of issues that are on the people's mind at this time?
Well, Mark, good evening. I'll take your first question first. Of course, there have been a high number of polling in Bengal ever since the first phase of elections here. And after about 6, now the 7th and the last phase of elections in Bengal, if you can see behind me the long queues, I'll just ask my camera person to pan and show you. The long queues is perhaps giving all of us perhaps a testament of the fact that how people in Bengal are enthusiastic about voting. They leave everything aside to come out of their homes and cast their vote. It's about 4:20 in the afternoon, but despite that, and today was a very hot and humid weather here in Bengal, but despite the many odds of temperatures, people have been queuing up in large numbers. There are 3 polling booths here, and in almost all the polling booths, the queues are as long as the one that you see behind me. So this is perhaps, again, a reminder that yes, Bengal is likely to once again see about 78 to 80% polling being recorded overall, even in the last phase of elections. And of course, Mark, for your second question on the issues, there are multiple issues that the people of Bengal have been talking about. We have been to several constituencies. I've covered Bengal over the last almost 3.5 phase, I would say, here in Bengal. So of course, the issues particularly of employment, development, as well as industrialization have been a key issue amongst most electorate that we have spoken about. This particular constituency of Jadavpur, where I am, is being fought by the Trinamool Congress's Shayani Ghosh, while on the other hand, the BJP's Anirban Ganguly is contesting. But historically, Jadavpur constituency has been a very stronghold of the CPIM. What we pick up from the ground in Jadavpur is that there are many still CPIM loyalists here in this particular this particular constituency. This is also the same constituency from where Buddhadev Bhattacharya, the former chief minister of the left of Bengal, used to contest. So of course, this has been a stronghold. So we can fairly say that in Jadavpur it would be a 3-corner fight between the left, the TMC and the BJP. So of course, it is these people behind me that are casting their mandate, and of course, we'll get to know about it on the 4th of June. Not much days left when the ballots will open and the results will be out for the people. In fact, for the candidates that have been waiting for very long, for about a month and a half, to know their fate. Yes, back to you.
Indeed, let's go across to Akshay Dongre. And indeed, Akshay, people have been waiting for a long time for this phase to come to an end. I mean, those who voted in the first phase on April 19 have been waiting as well. So when you've been covering almost all the phases as well, just like the Biendu. So put into context, you know, the stretch of this election and how it's now coming to an end.
Well, absolutely, Mark. In fact, I started in Meghalaya. That was the first phase of general elections, then moved to Uttar Pradesh, from there to Bhopal, Hyderabad, to New Delhi as well, and now I'm here in Manali of Himachal Pradesh. In fact, as far as the voting percentage is concerned, this for the first time, in the middle of the day, I can feel that people are actually quite enthusiastic here, and the voting percentage has been somewhat satisfactory. In fact, along with the state of West Bengal and Jharkhand, Himachal is one of the best performing states as far as the voter turnout today is concerned. It is currently at 58.41%. That is almost at 60%. So other constituencies besides Mandi that has voted about where we are right now about 61%. Kangra is somewhere around 55%, and then the other two constituencies of Hamirpur and Shimla both around 58 to 57%. So quite a satisfactory number as far as the state is concerned, given the fact that this is a hilly terrain. Many people have to walk for long kilometers, trek mountains, and climb down mountains to reach to the polling booth. And in fact, I would like to show to our viewers the kind of environment we are in right now. In my left hand side there are these mighty Himalayas. This is a polling booth in the middle of this valley near Manali, near the Vashisht village. This is perhaps one of the highest polling booth among many others in the hilly region of the country. So this is the polling booth looking like right now, because most of the villagers here have already come early in the morning or till the afternoon and have cast their ballot, most of them at least. And now they are now involved in their day-to-day things. In fact, we spoke to many. They spoke about the requirement for people to, in fact, come out and vote in huge numbers. And especially it is important for a hilly state like Himachal Pradesh, which is, in fact, impacted by a lot of things, including climate change, including last year when we saw devastation because of flash floods that caused a lot of devastation in the state. So that is why people here are quite enthusiastic and quite interested in what they choose and who the next government will be, especially because it's not just the 4 Lok Sabha constituencies, but the stake of the future government of Himachal Pradesh also lies in this vote today because of the 6 by-elections of the Legislative Assembly. Back to you.
Right, let's go across also to Amritpal Singh, who's in Chandigarh. Amrit, the seat of Chandigarh has been held by the BJP since 2014, but before that, for 3 terms, it was held by the Congress. So, I mean, it's pretty evenly balanced between the two parties. But this time, there are new candidates in the fray from both parties. How do the people of Chandigarh, looking at this election and with just a few hours left for voting, I mean, they must probably, once again, I mean, as one who's been covering many phases, how do you view the end of this election?
It's a clear two-cornered fight in Chandigarh between the Congress's Manish Tiwari, a former union minister, and of course a relatively less leader with lesser profile, Sanjay Tandon of the BJP, but he's a local guy. He's risen through the ranks. He's contested municipal elections, etc. The thing here in Chandigarh is that they do not, it's a union territory. They do not have a legislative assembly. So you just have the MC, the municipal corporation, and then you have the MP poll. So his profile may not, compare to Manish Tiwari's, but he is a local guy. Manish Tiwari, though, is a Chandigarh. He studied in Chandigarh. He belongs to Chandigarh, but he's been, Supreme Court lawyer, played a role in the national politics. He's been MP from Punjab in Ludhiana, and the last time around, he's a sitting MP, outgoing MP of Anandpur Sahib. It's an evenly balanced contest between the two. There is a core BJP vote here, which will go to Sanjay Tandon, but Manish has the advantage that Manish is getting the Congress's vote and also the Aam Aadmi Party vote, because the India bloc is fighting here, is contesting here unitedly. I mean, they're contesting as a coalition partners, unlike in Punjab where they are contesting against each other. So that's going in Manish's favor. It is, when you talk to people, it is quite an evenly balanced because Kiran Kher was the MP from here of Chandigarh for the past 10 years. People thought she was an absent MP. She was a Bollywood star who would live in Bombay, hardly come to Chandigarh. So there is a certain anti-incumbency playing against the BJP. But all that said, there is a core BJP vote which still votes very passionately, and they're getting their cadres out. So it is a strong contest here in Chandigarh. Mark.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Amritpal Singh, Akshay Dongre, Dibyendu Mondal, as well as Deepika Mehta. Thanks for joining us. Now, as voting is underway for the 7th phase of polling for India's general election, our correspondent Dibyendu Mondal tells us more from Kolkata.
Voting is underway for the last phase of elections, and I am in the North Kolkata Lok Sabha constituency in West Bengal. Remember, there are 9 crucial seats that are going to polls in the last and the 7th phase of elections of 2024. This is the Kolkata North constituency where the BJP and the TMC are in direct contest, and this is a polling booth where you can see this is the Sanskrit College under the Calcutta University, and if you can see long queues at this polling station number 190, where people have been queuing up since morning to cast their mandate for their preferred candidates here in West Bengal. So, of course, there are many women voters, there are elderly voters, as well as youths that are coming in to cast their vote and give their mandate. But, of course, despite the hot and humid climate here in Kolkata, what we witnessed here is that people have been turning out in large numbers, and by the end of the day, at about 6 p.m. when the voting closes, it's once again expected that Bengal will cast vote of about 75 to 80%, given the fact that Bengal have always been recording high number of voter turnout. And by the sheer number of people, if you can see, there are 3 polling booths here. It is perhaps a testament to the fact that, there could be a high number of voter turnout in the state of West Bengal. But of course, it is these people that are casting their mandate. And on the 4th of June, when the ballots open, we'll get to know who has been able to conquer the hearts of the people of Bengal. With camera person PK, this is Dibyendu Mondal from Kolkata in West Bengal for DD India.
And still to come here on DD India News are what lies ahead for former US President Donald Trump after being found guilty by a New York jury. And flood situation in Assam gets worse. The number of flood-affected districts has risen to 11.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Now, the US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Saturday tried to refocus attention on China's threat in the Indo-Pacific. He sought to alleviate concerns that conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza have detracted from America's security commitments in Asia. Austin, who was speaking at the annual Shangri-La Dialogue Security Summit in Singapore, met his Chinese counterpart Dong Jun on Friday in a bid to cool friction over issues from Taiwan to China's military activity in the South China Sea.
And America will continue to play a vital role in the Indo-Pacific. Together with our friends across the region that we share. In the United States, across the United States government, across our political landscape, you will find a strong and bipartisan commitment to the Indo-Pacific. Now, critics and propagandists will still oppose the principles that drive convergence. They will continue to reject the rule of law, and they will try to impose their will through coercion and aggression.
The Japanese Defense Minister Minoru Kihara also met the French counterpart, his French counterpart, that is, Sébastien Lecornu. This happened on the sidelines of the Shangri-La dialogue in Singapore. Meanwhile, during the security summit, Canada raised a concern towards China meddling in its elections. Warning China, the Canadian Defense Minister Bill Blair said that the actions by dialogue on Saturday, where he planned to meet U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and discuss support for his embattled country in his address to delegates. The International Institute of Strategic Studies, which organizes the security conference, said that he would participate in a discussion session on Sunday entitled Reimagining Solutions for Global Peace and Regional Stability. He's expected to ask attendees at the conference to attend and support a peace summit this month in Switzerland. And Jessica Taneja has been following the story, and she joins us now from the newsroom. Jessica, what is the significance of the U.S. and Chinese defense principals meeting on the sidelines of the Shangri-La dialogue?
Well, the 75-minute conversation between Lloyd Austin and his Chinese counterpart, the National Defense Minister of China, Admiral Dong, was quite significant in more ways than one. Firstly, it did take place after 2 years, and the military-to-military talks were reinstated between the United States and China roughly after 2 years. So that was significant in itself, and you remember the time it was halted, which is when the U.S. House Speaker, former U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, had made a visit to Taiwan and created certain issues between the Chinese and the Americans. Remember the military drills then, but that was that, and there were more attempts made when Xi Jinping and Chinese Premier Xi Jinping and American President Joe Biden met during the APEC summit in San Francisco last year, where there were talks about resuming military-to-military talks. But this is, of course, also being looked at as something which would ease tensions for a lot of the world that is watching the two powers settled in that fraught relationship and somehow looking for no conflict to escalate with any miscommunications or possibly eliminating any kind of miscalculations. Of course, there were a lot of issues raised between the two when they had the meeting just very recently. But there's a lot that the American and Chinese intend to do in terms of at least resuming or continuing with this military-to-military communication. From their communique, it seems it shall continue.
Indeed, Jessica, but the conversation between the two is also seen as a bid to cool the friction over, issues like Taiwan and also the Chinese military activity in the South China Sea. Are we going to see some easing of tension there?
Well, that's correct, Mark, and both Taiwan and other security issues were raised. If you see the recent developments in the East China Sea and the South China Sea, in fact, even the meeting between the Chinese and the Japanese counterpart that just took place a while ago, the discussion between them was largely around the Senkaku Islands and the Chinese coercion in that area. So that was one point, and of course, Taiwan. You saw the recent developments when the Taiwan president Lai Ching-te was sworn in, and the Chinese military exercises were quite a concern at that point for the United States, because the air defense identification zone was breached not just once but multiple times. In fact, more than what was seen back in 2022, when the former U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi had visited in China, had expressed its displeasure of such kind of political visits. Kept Taiwan aside, of course, there was another issue that was discussed between the Chinese and the American counterpart, and that of Russia. where the Americans say that the Chinese continue to support Russia's military defense industry, and that has perhaps been one of the point of concerns, and its continuous support despite China claiming neutrality in the war between Ukraine and Russia. That is where the Americans feel that the Chinese were not keeping their word, and while the Chinese say that they are not providing any assistance to the Russians. So that remains a point of contention, but largely on who gets to exercise military control in Asia is at the heart of it all.
Jessica Taneja from the newsroom, thanks very much. The United States, Japan and South Korea have strongly opposed any unilateral attempts to change the status quo in the Indo-Pacific waters, and they've strongly condemned North Korea's recent launches using ballistic missile technology. A joint statement of the three countries followed a meeting of the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell with the Japanese Vice Foreign Minister Masataka Okano and South Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Kim Hong-kyun. This happened in Little Washington in Virginia on Friday. Now, according to the media, the officials agreed to continue close coordination on North Korea and other challenges to regional and global stability, with a plan to set up a new coordinating body to further align their policies. The U.S. Deputy Secretary of State, Campbell, ahead of this meeting at his farmhouse, said that the envisioned body will likely be a secretariat of some kind. The UN Security Council, which urgently convened a meeting on the recently failed bid by North Korea to launch a military spy satellite, remained split, with the US and its allies, Japan and South Korea, clashing with China and Russia over Pyongyang's action. The US and its security allies criticized Pyongyang for attempting to launch a satellite carrying rockets in defiance of the UN Security Council resolutions, while Russia and China defended North Korea's action. Briefing the 15-nation organ, Khalid Khayari, who is the Assistant Secretary General of the Middle East and Asia and the Pacific, noted that North Korea did not issue safety notifications to relevant international authorities, which represents, in fact, a serious risk to international civil aviation and maritime traffic. Russia launched a barrage of missiles and drones on Saturday that damaged energy facilities and critical infrastructure across Ukraine. At least 4 people were injured, which has prompted the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, to issue a fresh plea, and this is for more air defense assistance. Ukraine's Air Force said that it had shot down 35 of 53 Russian missiles and 46 of 47 attack drones used for this strike, which pile more pressure, in fact, on Ukraine's hobbled energy system as the war with Russia is in its 3rd year. News from South Africa now. The vote share of the South African governing party, which is the African National Congress, has slipped further. It's now just over 40% after this week's parliamentary election, with results in from almost all polling stations. This is according to the Electoral Commission's website. With results from 97% of the voting centres, the ANC stood at 40.14%, drop from 57.5% that it had secured in the national election in 2019. The main opposition party, which is the Democratic Alliance, it was at 21.7%, while the Umkhonto we Sizwe party, the MK, which is a new party led by the former President Jacob Zuma, was able to poll 14.8%. The ANC will now have to strike a coalition deal or, form another agreement with one or more of the smaller parties to govern. This is an unprecedented prospect in the post-apartheid era. Let's take a look at what's making news around the world. Motorcyclists in Caracas, they gathered to mourn the passing away of a 17-year-old rider, Eliezer Fuentes. He was a teen biker and he died after complications. He was shot, in fact, by the police. Now, the bikers organized a motorcade to bid him farewell, showcasing tricks as they demanded justice for his untimely death. China has claimed that humanoid robots are going to revolutionize both homes and workplaces in the near future. Industry insiders anticipate that within the next 3 to 5 years, these robots could be prepared to enter factories and households. So still to come here on DD India News Hour. The US President Joe Biden congratulates the Kansas City Chiefs for their back-to-back Super Bowl wins.
Taiwan, this self-governed democratic island, has survived for 75 years in the shadow of the dragon, mainland China. The question is, will it be able to survive? Will it be able to maintain its existence?
For Taiwan, a victory by China would be obviously catastrophic. For China, a defeat, a military defeat where they were not able to reunify Taiwan by force, equally catastrophic for the Xi Jinping, with Coterie in particular, but for the Communist Party of China in general.
You're watching has risen to 11. 560 villages in 25 residential areas are currently underwater. More than 300,000 people are affected by the floods. In the latest report, which was released on Friday by the Assam State Disaster Management Authority, in fact said that 6 people had lost their lives. The floods have inundated areas in Chachar, in Hailakandi, West Karbi Anglong, Nagaon and Hajoi. These districts are in Assam and they have disrupted communications and transportation. Time now to focus on the sports news. And the stage is set for the Mega UEFA Champions League final as the 14-time champions Real Madrid are going to be taking on Germany's Borussia Dortmund. And this is the summit clash. It's happening at the Wembley Stadium. The Los Blancos will start as the favourites in the biggest match of the season. And Dortmund have been the dark horse this year. They've edged past teams like Atletico Madrid as well as Paris Saint-Germain. And they've made it to the final. It's going to be the last match also for the Madrid legend Toni Kroos, and he announced his retirement from the sport after the Euros. Also, the veteran Marco Reus is going to bid adieu for Dortmund after the UCL final. And Narayan Singh is joining us from the newsroom with more on this story. Well, Narayan, it's the final, it's a big final. Just put it into context for us. Who are the players we should be looking out for and who's likely, who has the upper hand?
Mark, as you said, it's one of the biggest match of the season. And if you talk about this season, the way Real Madrid made comebacks after comebacks and late goals after the late goals this season in the UEFA Champions League, definitely we can say it's an incredible season for the Real Madrid. And so far, they are the most successful team of the UEFA Champions League, winning the title for 14 times, and if this time they wins the tournament, it will be the 15th title and the 15th trophy of the European, we can say the holy grail of the European football, that is UEFA Champions League. Both the teams are the well balanced, as you said that the key players, if you talk about the Real Madrid, this team is the most balanced team of the Europe, and they have the, we can say the balance of the youth and experience. Real Madrid has a player like the Jude Bellingham, who also won the La Liga's best player this season, and also the players like young players like Vinicius Juniors, or also the experienced player like Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, Nacho and Dani Carvajal, who had defined the previous, not only this season, also in the past, we can say the past decade, they won the previous a large number of titles for the European heavyweights Real Madrid. And talking about this German side, Borussia Dortmund, they too have played a fantastic football throughout this season of the Champions League, despite of the fact that domestically in the Bundesliga they struggled but in the Champions League they played a fantastic football. They lost only one match this campaign, that was against the Paris Saint-Germain, and apart from that they were undefeated. And Real Madrid too was first time in their we can say history of the Champions League they remain unbeaten in this edition. So all in all, it's going to be a fantastic match tonight at the Wembley Stadium, and hoping that the Real Madrid, they are the specialists in the Champions League football. And if we talk about the kind of football they played and the kind of players they have, after the departure of their coach, we can say in 2021 after the COVID, the team was struggling, and at that time their management bought an intelligent coach like Carlo Ancelotti, and slowly they built that team, and now we can say that they won this season La Liga also. Now they are in the finals of the Champions League, and hoping they will continue the trend, that winning momentum, especially in the UEFA Champions League.
This match will set it up nicely also for the Euros that are coming up later this month. So, I mean, put that into context for us as well. What are we to expect? I mean, it's going to be a big month for football going forward, isn't it?
Definitely, if we talk about Euro, it's one of the toughest competition in the world of football, because here all the European teams are participating, and we know that the kind of football is played in the European continent. And last year we saw that after a long gap, and South American team Argentina won the Football World Cup, and before that we saw how the European teams were dominating the Football World Cup also. And now we can say that all the footballers from the South America are also played in the various leagues across the Europe, especially in the European football. So all in all, it's going to be a big deal for their, especially for the players. And as the teams, the announcements will take place, definitely it will be a big thing for the players also. They will also eyeing a spot for their team in the Euro squad too. And as you mentioned, in that that's the last tournament for the Toni Kroos and as well as the Marco Reus of the Germany side.
We'll leave it there. Thanks very much, Narayan, for joining us from the newsroom. Now, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi completed a 45-hour-long meditation at Kanyakumari in the southern state of Tamil Nadu today. And earlier, on the second day of the meditation, the Prime Minister performed the Surya Arghya during the sunrise at the Vivekananda Rock Memorial. The Prime Minister at the southernmost tip of the Indian peninsula, Kanyakumari, and this is the Vivekananda Rock Memorial. The Prime Minister had spent 45 hours in meditation. This began the silent period after the last phase of campaigning had ended, right up to polling, which has gone on today, and polling will end in 1 hour's time from now. In fact, closes at 6 o'clock in the evening, and that will in fact bring a close to all the 7 phases of the Indian general election, and all eyes will be on the final outcome, which is scheduled for the 4th of June. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. And this app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lynn. From all of us here in Delhi, thank you very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.